Girl from Bindies. In this video, I'm going to show you how to put the binding around your quilt. This is my way of doing it, and it applies to all quilts that I do make, that there are various different combinations of ways to put binding on. In our kits from bindies.com, you do get all the binding supplied, and there's enough in there for you to go around the quilt that is in that kit. If you're making your own quilt at home and you need to know how much binding you need, what you do is measure the whole quilt all the way around and then add 10 to 12 inches. And that will be for the tail for where we join. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you, because you do it for the width of the fabric, so you're going to have quite a few pieces to join together. So I'm going to show you how to join it. And what you do is you get the pieces and place them right sides together, and they're at a right angle. Then what you need to do is sew from this corner down to this corner, okay, and just sew straight down. And I've got a piece here where I've sewn down from corner to corner and then just chopped off the piece, leaving the 1/4 inch seam. So when we do then open out our binding, we have one continuous length. Now you might need to do this, I do know for the kits in Bindies that you do need to have 5 to 6 strips all joined together. Okay, so you just keep going, making sure you've got the seam all on the same, all on the wrong side of the fabric, or on the same side. I know with homespun it's a little bit hard sometimes to tell the right and the wrong. So you have 4 or 5 strips all joined together, and then you take it over to the iron. And when you take it to the iron with the wrong side, so the seam in the middle, you turn over and bring the raw edges to the raw edges and give it a press. And you do this for the whole length of the binding. Okay? Then when you've got all your binding, you get your quilt. Now on this one, I've actually got the binding at different stages around the sample. So I'm going to be turning it, but it will be continued around on your quilt. But this is to show you the different techniques. So what you do is you first of all leave a gap of around 8 to 10 inches. Okay, and this is your long continuous piece of binding that you've ironed and joined together. Leave a good 10 inches, 10 to 12, and you start sewing. Okay, when you start sewing and you come up to a corner, what you need to do is the width that you've come in for your seam, you need to stop from that same width from the other edge of your quilt. Okay, so you're sewing along, leave your needle down in the quilt, turn the quilt and back off with the machine. So push your reverse button on your machine and back off. Now you can back off straight, or you can back off at an angle to the corner. Then while it's still under the machine, so you've backed off, your needle's now out, lift the presser foot on your machine, grab your long piece of binding that you've got, and you're going to flip it up so that all the raw edges of your binding and your quilt are in line. And you've got a little angle here. Then you're going to bring it back down, and you're going to bring it down so that there's a fold at the top of this edge of the quilt, and the 2 raw edges of the binding and the quilt meet on the way down. Okay, and what you'll get is when you start sewing, because it's still in the machine, just push the presser foot back down and start sewing. And you sew straight down with the same seam allowance. And this will give you lovely mited corners. So when you're actually turning your binding over, you can see that you've got a nice corner that has been mited. Okay, now as you're sewing along, remember when you get to turning it around to the next stage, so then we're going to stop. Okay, so we get to our stop position and we've still got some binding left over. So now we have to figure how are we going to join these 2 pieces and have exactly the right amount of binding in this section for our quilt. So what I'm going to do is you pull up, so you have them very flat coming together, make sure they're flat against your quilt, bring them up together. Now I'm just going to turn this around so I can show you this way. bring them up and sort of join them in the middle between where you've stopped and started. Okay, and then with a marking pen or a pen, but the pen is better. Now this is a water erasable pen, a blue marking pen. You can use just a little white chalk pen, Taylor's chalk, because it's only matter, we only need this so we know where to place them together. So as they join right at that spot, just put a dot on each one of the